Kiesav Vaglagus Ala Civil Rahaz Elixzi Mavdevo Tiz Nahla. Now, any further thoughts on the chant or season?
I see an astral body getting tougher. We'll call it toughening up, which is a good thing.
And I guess before we start in this too, what we're about to see. So we have Noctulius from moon to Mercury, Nithra from moon to Venus, Shugara from moon to Mars, Stanus from moon to Sun, Asath from moon to Jupiter, Azanagan from moon to Saturn, Nakala from moon to Venus, Gawath from Mercury to Sun, Banan Ath from Mercury to Mars, Litigan from Mercury to Jupiter, Abatu from Mercury to Saturn, Karusamsu from Venus to Sun, Namaku from Venus to Mars, Makatoron from Venus to Jupiter, Velpecula from Venus to Saturn, Kathana from Sun to Mars, Atazoth from Sun to Jupiter, Vindex from Sun to Saturn, Dapkina from Mars to Jupiter, Saractonus from Mars to Saturn, Naas from Jupiter to Saturn, Alastaros towards the Earth or towards the interior, and that symbol that looks like the looks like the Alpha Omega sort of, that is put in the context of to the outer galaxy. So you're beyond the planetary with that one. That's what that one means. And so I'm not sure at what point we ended exactly, but so we had the pentagram rite, which I've gone into further elsewhere. Baal Sabub in the east, in the south, Belial in the west, Lewiatan in the north, Bahmut above, Azazel below, Abaddon, and in the center, I know we went over that, but you have Shaitan, Hasathon, Hashathon, Samal, Shema'al as variation that you can look at. And so a lot more famous per se, but less, I don't know if it's more or less understood. But so going into the black verses, we went into the green and then the yellow verses the last time. We had, so Genesis 3:24, and he drove man out and stationed east of the Garden of Eden the cherubim and the fiery, ever-turning sword to guard the way to the tree of life. And perhaps there's like earthly doors, right?
Mm-hmm.
That there's earthly doors. Okay, yeah, the Shekhin. So there's a presence before.
To open those doors.
So yeah, some places, like there's talk in Celtic lore about you go places and then you go and then it turns out you're gone for a year and a day or whatever. Now I think the people that pass through, I don't think somebody who's totally mundane is going to have that. People have the experience that they can do something with. Did I lose you? Okay, no, I didn't lose you. Okay, because I'm looking at the board, so I can't. 927. May God enlarge Japheth and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be a slave to them. A lot of these words have very material sort of origins and kind of are taken elsewhere. Like Tune becomes, I mean, it's not the thing that we see in political talk really, with the Zion, but it's it starts off as a landmark. Then it becomes a shining example that a person has. So it's not just, oh, well, this nation, so therefore look at that. So 1413, a fugitive brought the news to Abram the Hebrew, who was dwelling in the terebinths of Mamre the Amorite, kinsman of Eshcol and Aner, these being Abraham's allies. Now, I think there might be some mystery when you look at the meanings of these names and words. Of course, Abram instead of Abraham. So dwelling before that, and he had to change from that dwelling in order to pass on to his other state of thing. So in 1612, he shall be a wild donkey of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. He shall dwell alongside of all his kinsmen. Well, donkeys are like sort of people that are, that they're carrying, that they're making a bunch of noise they don't have to make. They're carrying stuff that they don't. They're passing on stuff they don't quite understand. But this is the thing you don't remember, because Sarah's like Abraham's bad wife. The other ones are as decent. It's like what he so he chases away the good women for the sake of the mischievous woman. Well, I mean partially mischievous, but you know what I mean.
Right.
So it's in the context of what she was told after her response was a bit off. 25:18. They dwell from Havilah by Shur, which is close to Egypt, all the way to Asher. They camped alongside their kinsmen. And so the previous one, they were among the kinsmen, but it wasn't good for them. And it's like, okay, then they're a full-on member of the community, right?
Right.
And then 26:2, God is a verb and noun. I don't like to use the word Lord unless it has it. Like in the Greek side, you do have of the Bible, you do have Lord, and it's sort of ambiguous, but Lord has that connotation, and you don't want to. I don't like mixing it up.
Okay.
And that's why I'm sure a lot of Jews would not get along with me, because I refuse to say the name or something that's a replacement. It's like I'm going to say what things actually say.
Right.
Appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Stay in the land which I point out to you." And so your dwelling is with this place. But sometimes one is given an appearance. It's like I've talked about, there's 3 sources of dreams. And one that most of the dreams are just yourself. They're really just yourself processing what you've encountered during the day. And that's important to deal with and understand. It's not to discount that. It's just, which is very important, what you listen to and stuff before going to bed and all this, because I had a friend that had all sorts of anxiety, and at least once she accidentally dialed me from her pocket, and when I was able to talk to her the next time, I do remember one specific time, like somewhat damaged by Nine Inch Nails came on, and it was playing pretty loud, obviously, because she never talks this loud through the phone. So like yelling or whatever sort of yelling and screaming sort of level, and I'm like, no wonder why you have all these anxiety problems, because this is what you listen to right before going to bed.
Right. I like to listen to the 68 hertz tone. That works really good for peaceful sleep.
35, 34, and 35. Wait.
And these are the black verses, right?
Yeah. I'm in Genesis. Oh wait, did I do 20? 24.
Yeah, he did 3:24. 26:2.
Oh, 26. Oh, okay. I'm reading from the wrong thing. Okay, 35:22. Okay. I was looking at the verses for Exodus or something. Um, Now when Israel stayed in that land, and Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel found out. Now the sons of Jacob were 12 in number. Well, Israel, like nowadays we talk about the Jews and the Israelites, that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
Because we're talking about something else. But and you can't, oh, this generation was pretty good. And some of it's just when the father's around, right? The father's
Right.
around, and the things can stay together because where they mess up, they can be set right and all that. Or it's not because he's the father; it's because the guy's in connected with this. They're getting the message from the spiritual beings. They're, and all that. So it's okay. 49:13. Zebulun shall dwell by the seashore, he shall be a haven for ships, and his flank shall rest on Sidon. And okay, so a person has a purpose, and your purpose is shown through this other stuff that one is to your placement and your abilities, those are towards your purpose. And that's what determines who is superior and who's not superior, not not that other stuff.
It's
Because somebody
important.
could have great wealth and all sorts of other stuff, but they're inferior because they don't, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. You got to use what you have.
like all those people, all those little clips that people post on
Mhm.
the television show. Oh, they look up to these people's, and the people's like literally saying it's daddy's money or something. It's like, oh, um, see, you're partying on your trust fund or whatever. The presence of God is a verb and noun, abode on Mount Sinai, and the cloud hid for 7 days. The seventh day, he called to Moses from the midst of the cloud. It's 24:16. And sometimes the presence is there, but you don't understand it in any other sense that there is a presence. And I'm sure I pointed that out with a bunch of my rituals that I've shared, that here I
Yeah.
am having this experience, or had this experience. Um,
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to have the experience to kind of know it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
25:8, and let them make my sanctuary that I may dwell among them. And so sometimes there's a process. Sometimes you got to build a building. Sometimes you have to go through carry some things about. Sometimes it's a series of rituals that you need to do before you get to this one state.
Yeah. It's like little pieces come together, like puzzle pieces coming together.
And it's really
Yeah.
frustrating sometimes if you got okay, I've been working on this ritual for like 40 days, and then in 2 days I'm doing it, and then finally you have the last little bits put together. Um, it's like
That's like,
sometimes I've literally posted the video on the last day to tell people, okay, this is what I'm going to do because I figured out the rest of it or something. Um,
interesting. Sometimes I'll get things days later.
but it's not
Sometimes,
it's not like some of these new age groups that it's like it's all about the experience, and therefore it's like, okay, well, but believing and doing the right, it's like orthodox and orthoprax are certainly important, but it's not necessarily what others say or orthodox and orthoprax, because as I'm saying, the whole mundane thing is that you're breaking
mhm,
away from this conservative mold where you're not letting yourself making your own conclusions. 29, 45, and 46. I will abide among the Israelites, and I will be their God, and they shall know that I am increasing existence and their God, who brought them out from the land of Egypt, that I might abide among them. I, established their God. Now I'm throwing in different meanings so they're accepting as the power. Al is the power Ya goes out, and hum, or yahum, they are taking in. They are taking in. I think that's probably a better way to understand, easier way to understand that, right?
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, drawing in.
but yeah, it's some things only are going to certainly the spiritual presences and the very spiritual side. I'm not saying that this gospel prosperity, oh, I'm doing well in my business or whatever, so the spirits are on my side. It doesn't work like that.
No. No.
But for because people can violate all sorts of things about their spiritual covenants and still do well in business, but
Right.
are still whatever. But
Yeah, there's
so
definitely
40:35, Moses could not enter the tent of meeting because the cloud had settled upon it, and the presence of God as a verb and noun filled the tabernacle. Um, and here they don't have they're going around in tents at this point, I think is one of the points. And so here they have so even the people, like I don't sometimes I feel like, okay, I'm not going over there. I mean, there's nothing physically stopping me, but it's not the time for me to go over there.
I understand.
It's not for me to share this. It's not for me to do this. And spiritually, you get that sense. And so Moses was supposed to be the biggest authority, at least in the land, at that time. And so he was like held back. The spiritual thickness or whatever. Sometimes it's thick, sometimes it's light, and it's extraordinarily, um, and sometimes there's a pressing inward or outward, and it's like from every direction, or sometimes it's like from one direction. But it's not a physical thing. It's
Right.
but it can kind of instruct you. Leviticus 16:16. Thus he shall purge the shrine of the uncleanness and the transgression of the Israelites, whatever their sins, and he shall do the same for the tent of meeting which abides with them in the midst of their uncleanness. Now, yeah, even if there's something that, okay, people have this idea like they're totally spoiled. Now, I know sometimes somebody's like certain opportunity could be gone for them forever or something, but spiritually, you're not kind of taken away, and there's always stuff to do before you die. It's like in Buddhism. In Buddhism, there's this idea, with all of it, you have your peak experience. The Buddha, well, the compilation we call Buddha had his peak experience, but he went on. He went on to teach and continue to meditate and stuff like this. He wasn't like, oh yes, I had such an awesome meditation, I'm never going to meditate again. And you occasionally hear of a Sufi that does the same thing.
Mhm.
And speaking of modes and modes, that's one of the things I get into too. Is I got these I get into these modes because with these modes, see, Sufis tend to be some of the most conservative Muslims you're going to ever encounter. People think, oh, they're just wrong. They have all these instructions from their sheikh, but their sheikh's supposed to, if they put it in sort of the training,
Mhm.
like in the army, you definitely, if somebody goes into the army or police training or something like this, there's a lot that goes through. And for some reason, they want to yell at you constantly. It's like, I know machines and stuff are loud, but it's actually just not helpful to have some guy yell at you to the point where, because maybe they're just getting in the mode where you feel like killing everybody because I've been, you're not kill you.
Right.
But
That
the
why make me feel that way.
because
I
that's how
wouldn't feel
I
like
feel.
that.
It's like I'm okay. It's not
I
good.
wouldn't like
It's
that
not
at
the
all.
right decision. It's not the right decision.
Right.
But you need to stop yelling at me because you really don't. It's
Right.
like you don't need to be the reason why. At the very least, for that alone, I have to be sober.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I have other reasons, obviously, because I do want to preserve my mind and all that. So
Right.
5:3, remove the male and female alike, put them outside the camp, so they do not defile the camp of those in whose midst I dwell. Um, okay, well, they're talking about some ailment or something, but one of the things that people need to remember, like when it comes to what they call religion, right? Um,
Mhm.
is it's not, oh, it's just for the males or the females. There's kind of like the same approach with certain stuff. Um,
Mhm.
and where it's different, it's just because of the biological differences. That's really how it should be treated. I know in the Bible it kind of denigrates women. They don't have consent in marriage. Guys don't have consent either. If your brother dies and he has no kids, you're forced to marry his
I've
wife.
read that. I've read that.
You have no say in it. And if you do something like pull out, they might kill you. Um, it's like, I don't finish. Come on. It's like, well, something I don't get, because if you've started, what, no, what, you know. But anyways, 9, 17, and 18. And whenever the cloud lifted from the tent, the Israelites would set out accordingly, and at the spot where the cloud settled, then the Israelites would make camp, and a command from God is a verb and noun. The Israelites broke camp, and at a command of increasing existence, they made camp, and they remained encamped as long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle. Now, was this? Some people say, "Oh well, it's like, first of all, Judaism didn't exist back then, and second of all the other every other religion afterwards kind of claims that too. So you can't say, especially since they don't really descend from the Israelites. So they say, oh well, it was a communal experience, but is there still the communal experience?
Hmm.
I look into this John Dee stuff, and this John Dee stuff, John Dee was trying to bring back the experience. He had this goal. Okay, there's some missing stuff religiously that we need to look into. The Protestants and the Catholics don't have the whole picture by themselves. Let's try to reunite them. And it turned out that, they wanted to bring back the experience they heard about in the Bible, the experience of the Israelites, the experience of Enoch, the experience of the early church. Whether I don't agree with a lot of the theology and cosmology and stuff attributed to
Hmm.
that, but that is, one of the things that was going on there. 922 of Numbers, whether it was 2 days or a month or a year, however long the cloud lingered over the tabernacle, the Israelites remained encamped and did not set out. Only when it lifted did they break camp. And okay, let me iterate the books that we've gone over. We've been in so far is Brashit, Shemut, and we are in Bumdaber. And so one of the things that happens sometimes with these experiences is the sense of time is changed. Things are
Hmm.
sped up, things are expanded, and like, yeah, I've shared some experiences, and it's like, oh well, I was doing this like Goetia ritual for 15 minutes, and it seemed like the longest one or something like this out of what I was talking about, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I do one that's 2.5 hours, and I definitely did not experience it like I was there, like I was
Right.
there, vibrating things both.
Yeah.
What
I've noticed that. Yeah, it could seem like 10, 15 minutes, but it's actually like an hour.
Or
So
I had
when,
an experience. I had experience where I went into a room, and it was like 3 days, 3 days worth of chanting.
wow.
And so we have 10, 12. The Israelites set out on their journeys from the wilderness of Sinai. The cloud came to rest in the wilderness of Paran. Now, Paran contains Mecca. Paran has Saudi Arabia. And the interesting thing about that, they talk about the presence. So the ancient Egyptians called Mecca Baka, which means the house of the two souls. The Ba is like the mental soul, and the Ka is the astral soul, and the Ha is the house, and the house. So you have this the cube. The cube is, it's a Saturnal symbol, and people get all freaked out about that, whatever. But it's a symbol of the mental construction of consciousness, but it gets you beyond that, and whatever. But they have uh, but anyway, so the Israelites, it seemed like until they got to up towards Jerusalem after Moses, that they faced towards where Abraham sent some of his, sent Ishmael, according to the Bible. They were out there in the well in the spring of Baca, and all that's elsewhere mentioned. But I just thought, kind of thing. But they face that direction. So why are they facing that direction? And then for a couple thousand years after, there was no facing that direction, and then that direction's like becomes some sort of universal direction. But the point is the symbol. I thought just to bring up the symbolism, because you go out, and so there's a place you kind of whatever. And so Numbers 14:30. Not one shall enter the land which I swore to settle you, save Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. 14:30, okay. There's supposed to be this word in here somewhere. Okay, yeah, Lashukan. So sometimes the word shekin refers to something that's not, it's different. It's not omnipresence. So the Shekinah is not omnipresence. So to talk about Shekinah, the Shekinah, or the Holy Ghost, or any of these other words, like it's God or part of God, rather than like a secondary being of some order, it just doesn't make sense if you look at that way, I don't think. 23:9, as I see them from the mountaintops, gaze on them from the heights, there is a people that dwells apart, not reckoned among the nations. Okay, and see, that's the thing too. You don't set one thing that I mentioned, because some people's like, oh, it's mainstream. Whether it's music or spirituality, people just need to knock it off with, I don't want to be part of that mainstream, It's not whether it's popular or whether it's not. That's not the point. You're just as mundane as everybody else, if that's what your approach is.
I like
Because
that.
you're in a, say you're in a group. It's like, say, if there's an overall good result as an afterlife and an overall bad result of an afterlife, one of the things that I think that it seems makes sense would happen is that you have you both tend to be pulling people along, or being pulled along by people, regardless of what side you're on.
Yeah.
24:2, as Balaam looked up and saw Israel encamped tribe by tribe, the Spirit of God came upon him. So you have this idea that he was that this guy was straight up a prophet or something. Hold on, I lost my bit here. Yeah. Ruch Alhim, which isn't quite the usual form. But Balaam had his issues, right? So perhaps some people, they have the experience, but then they don't become the sort of people that uses it right, and then therefore they're not. But then again, I guess he's tested, and he's like, oh, I can't curse it. I can't curse the people that I shouldn't be cursing. So it does have the lesson, but there are some issues with the lesson. Well, there's some issues with a lot of stories. There are some sick and violent stories here that one really doesn't know what to do with.
Right.
Numbers 35, 34, and 35. You shall not defile the land in which you live, in which I myself abide, for I, God is a verb, abide among the people. 35. Okay. And hold on a second here. No, I only see that once here. Oh, maybe it's said twice in the same verse. That's what I was thinking of. Okay, yeah, it must have been just said twice in the same verse, and I kind of messed up on where I was saying. And Deuteronomy, which is Debrim. Debrim is the name for Deuteronomy, which if you look at the last book in Tanakh, we have debris, hemim, and there's aleph and bait, but in the 24 book version, that's just one book. Anyways, it's I'm sorry, I'm thumbling my speech a little bit, but as I approach the ritual, I should do better, at least towards my experience and intentions with this.
You are fine.
Okay, 12:11. Then you must bring everything that I command you to the site where God is a verb and noun. Your God will choose to establish his name, your burnt offerings and other sacrifices, your tithes and your contributions, and all the choice votive offerings that you vow to the Lord. Oh, okay. So yeah, again, some places matter and some things matter, but there's an overall connection. The connection through which these things are had, that is the more important thing that one can deal with. Now, Isaiah, as far as the prophet section is concerned, I think that's probably the most. Now, the ancient alien people like Ezekiel, and there's, as for shocking stories, I think Ezekiel may be the bigger one. But I don't know, kings and stuff. Anyways, but Isaiah is very useful in terms of magical themes, you could say. I know people use the Psalms and stuff, but I think Isaiah is underappreciated as more than just something to berate people as okay.
Good note right there.
62. Behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and thick clouds the people. But upon you, God, his verb and noun will shine, and his presence be seen over you. There is a limit. There is a limit of that. There is something like I think that's one of the lessons that can be drawn. Whether you take that, I don't take that side because I don't take the side of the people going after those people, because if those people were really attacked for their belief, whether even if it was a wrong belief, I don't, that Bible story I kind of, you know,
Right.
but there is different experiences of the same thing, and if there's a spiritual thing going on, that is, you know, the more so. And just because others are taking the wrong side or whatever, or the right, or the right, it's which side you're taking, which side you're identifying with, or
Right.
the spiritual path. People talk about the left hand and the right hand. So the left hand takes in and the right hand gives out is the idea. And it's like, well, unless you're seeing the flow, you don't know the difference. It's really not the same difference. So it's not what side you were on spiritually, because you know how people use it as a cringy sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so
many things that are added to so many things, and it twists things that you can see through.
and what's that thing? That there's a Sufi metaphor about the moth. The moth and the fire aren't the same. So but ideally the moth's got the glass. It's keeping him safe from the fire. But then again, you can be totally but the moth will be destroyed when it goes through the fire. So you don't want that, but in a way you want destroyed. So this it's tricky like that. So that the flaming butterflies and stuff in the reference here.
Yeah.
So feel free at any point of this to drop in or just wait till the end, because I thought to go over this one more time as we close here.
Well, definitely the energetic connections are important. And, sometimes it takes just a little bit to, connect that, to get that connection. But once that happens, it's a whole new door, I guess we'll call it a door is open. And
And if
Yeah.
anybody sees these, anybody sees it, but see, you're going through the different door, the subjective and objective doors, hopefully connecting to something spiritual. But if somebody looks at those cards and comes up with their own ideas and stuff like this to work with this is something to consider. So I guess I'll close this with we must identify as separate in our longing for union. Full of a transcendent spirituality we have been confessing since we began. With a fiery letter, they have an opinion. The future king and queen have survived for this communion. Numinosity from the knees to the left hand, from the knees to the right hand, from the knees to the left elbow, from the knees to the pelvis, from the knees to the right elbow, from the knees to the left shoulder, from the left hand to the right hand, from the left hand to the pelvis, from the left hand to the left shoulder, from the left hand to the left elbow, from the left hand to the right elbow, from the left hand to the left shoulder, from the right hand to the pelvis, from the right hand to the left elbow, from the right hand to the right elbow, from the right hand to the left shoulder, from the pelvis to the left elbow, from the pelvis to the right elbow, from the pelvis to the left shoulder, from the left elbow to the right elbow, from the left elbow to the left shoulder, from the right elbow to the left shoulder, to this world and beyond, through the galaxy, are the paths and signs of a causal union. The future is a crystalline key, impaled and wrapped in the canal of white blood in gray mouths that are caught knowing the pull with the ruby password of the transparency and becoming the dragon. The winter is contained in the landscape gate and birds. From the desert of the frogs spreads the army of children. Sacrifice is made for the children of the unknown. The internal power of the eagle weaves. The angels are moved by the 7 tones of the Black Hill. The marriage of autumn is released from the earth in the sharpness of the snake of light. Desireless explosions empty the dungeons of flaming butterflies. The dance of solar stillness inflames the gravestones. The red and blue statue bears the lesson to